Welcome to Globalpose News. The speed with which the status quo in Syria, however unresolved and unsatisfactory, has been turned on its head in recent days has been extraordinary. Syrian government officials and supporters were still asserting the army would hold the line at Hama, even as insurgent fighters were entering the city. Shortly afterwards, the Syrian military acknowledged that it had pulled out of Hama, ceding control of the city for the first time to rebel factions. After capturing two major cities within a week, the next target for the insurgents led by the Islamist group, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham (HTS), is Homs. Tens of thousands of people are fleeing the city in anticipation of what looks likely to be the next major battle. The stakes have risen precipitously for President Bashar al-Assad and his key backers, Russia and Iran. Homs is strategically considerably more significant than either Aleppo or Hama. It straddles a crossroads that leads west to the heartland of support for the Assad dynasty and south towards the capital, Damascus. Whatever the previous strategy of HTS may have been, as it spent years building its power base in the northwestern province of Idlib, the momentum of the past week now seems to be leading inexorably towards a direct challenge to the continuing rule of Assad. In an interview with CNN, HTS leader Abu Mohammed al-Jawlani confirmed the rebels do indeed aim to overthrow the Assad regime, so attention is now focusing on whether the Syrian leader has the capacity to see off this renewed attempt to topple him from power. The Syrian army, which is largely made up of conscripts, might have lost the war years ago if outside forces had not come to Assad's aid. Soldiers are underpaid, under-equipped and often have poor morale, with desertion having long been an issue. As his military failed to hold Aleppo and then Hama, Assad issued an order raising soldiers' salary by 50%, but that in itself is unlikely to turn the tide. Russian planes backed up Syrian forces in Hama, but clearly not strongly enough to make an impact. The lack of all-out Russian military support has fueled speculation that Moscow may be less able to play the game-changing role that it performed in Syria in 2015. That would be down to almost 3 years of war in Ukraine, draining its reserves of manpower and military hardware. But Russia still has compelling reasons to stay the course with Assad. President Putin's decisive, full-scale military intervention, which kept the Syrian leader in power when he was close to defeat, showed up the failure of Western allies, the US in particular, to honor their promises of support to the rebels. The naval base that Russia has maintained for decades in the Syrian port of Tartus gives Moscow its only military hub in the Mediterranean. If the insurgents are able to take Homs, that could potentially open up a route towards the Syrian coast that could put the base at risk. It still seems unlikely that Russia would not feel a political and strategic imperative to refocus its firepower on the rebels to keep Assad in power, even if only in control of a diminished rump of Syria drastically shrunk from the 60% he currently controls. The other big question mark is over Iran and the militias it has backed, including Hezbollah, and the military expertise it has provided, which have been the other key element in keeping Assad in power. Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem, who took over after Israel's assassination of Hassan Nasrallah, has declared that the group will stand by the Syrian government, against what he has described as jihadist aggression orchestrated by the US and Israel. But with its leadership decimated and its fighters still regrouping after Israel's ground and air offensive against the group in Lebanon in recent months, Hezbollah may be nowhere near the strength it had when it battled on the front line against Syrian rebel factions. However, it clearly is still committed to playing its part, with security sources in Lebanon and Syria saying that elite forces from Hezbollah have crossed over into Syria and taken up positions in Homs. For more updates, news, views from around the globe, follow us on all our social media platforms at Globalpose.